for crying out loud, in international friendlies wasn't a big thing till UEFA woke up one day and decided to rebrand it and put a plastic cup there for people to carry and say, hey, Nations League. What's Nations League? It's just friendlies, but now they put it expanded games, expanded countries that can come in, and expanded the calendar. That's not alone. You look at the Champions League, expanded games, expanded table, expanded teams, congested calendar. That's not it. You look at the Club World Cup too, expanded teams, expanded games, expanded calendar, and all of these competitions is still expanded and hurting the top 200 talents in Europe, who should be protected and given rest.
Now let's get it started. Let's get it started.
Play ball! It's the international break and a couple of players did not go back to play for their country. Some were injured, some players decided on their own that they don't want to go to their country to represent their country for different reasons. For example, Odegaard is back from injury. He played 90 minutes against Chelsea, but he decided, probably spoke with the coach, that it's best for him to stay back and not go to Norway to play for his country. Last time, it's Mbappe decided not to go back to France to represent his country. Now, their coach has dropped him for this particular international break. Okay, guys, if you look at this whole thing about the international break, it comes periodically. But the question is that, is it that the players are faking injuries? Because, for example, Arsenal against Chelsea, suddenly Saka was taken out because he was injured. He was limping, so he's not going to play for England. Rice was taken off. He's not going to play for England. If you look at around Europe, it happens. Even at Chelsea, some players side withdrew because of injuries, but they played that game against Arsenal. So what do you make of this whole thing? Do you think that people don't respect international football again, or they see it as it's just a friendly game? Let me stay back with my club and train, and it's better for me because after all, they pay my bills.
Like I said before, earlier this morning, I said something about if the club in a nation, there are more than 1,000 players that could play. But we always have these 23 suspects. At some point, you just have only 2 or 3 additions that is added to the 23 suspects, or perhaps the 23 suspects. We have 2 or 3 additions here and there, like the case study of Calvin Phillips, who introduced the England team after some time, when you have a Dean Anderson that could hold on, but Calvin Phillips came up and was one of the surprises of that particular period. We also go on to have different surprises that could come on and perhaps bench the person who has that spot. So I think for the national team, if they can go to introduce players that don't really play for big teams, so they can see if they can reduce the play, you get the pressure of these big names. Because at some point you see, like you said, right, mentioned earlier, Martin Odegaard. He's been out for 2 months by playing for Norway. You get out for 2 months. Now coming back into the Arsenal side, and after just one game, you want him back in the Norway side. It's not possible. Even the club will not want to suffer that kind of loss, because you saw the games that happened after his injury for Norway. You saw the games that happened with Arsenal. He didn't perform.
Yes, but
the club did not perform. Now the club needs him.
But if you look at olden days when we grew up, now, clubs, a player can probably be out for 10 months, but once he's back fit, 1 or 2 games, once the country is calling, they are going back.
You're going far.
What is changing?
You're going far. You're saying olden days. That's the early 2000s and the middle 2000s before the 2020s. Now you're going far. Let's say 2010 at least, or 2018. It was still like that. Even in recent days, you see talk about Luke Shaw's. He was out from February for almost half of the season. From February to the end of the season, he wasn't fit, but he was available for England. And even through the course of the Euros 2024, he was available and he didn't play because of injuries. Then he came in the semi-finals or quarterfinals and semi-finals. That's playing 1.5 game. Played the quarterfinals, the last stages of the quarterfinals, and perhaps the full game in semi-finals, and went on another injury. And this present moment, now he's not played 1 game for Man United. That's the case study. Now, will you continue to have players like this play 70 games for their club, especially when they have injury? Let's say Luke Shaw is an injury-proven player. Players like this, you have 70 of them go on injury, 70 games, and they don't have a proper left back. Like look at Man United, for example, no left back in the side so far. And when they are available, they go to play for national teams. It doesn't tell a good message on the club record and as a player as well. So at some point, you feel like you're just coming back from injury, like other guys. You're just coming back from injury. At least beg the national team, have a conversation with the football federation of your country, and say perhaps I'll have to sit this one out. And this is the case where you say some of these players or some of these coaches will have to scout for other players that could come in and replace them.
John, what do you think about this? So do you think that for them to find balance, because everybody is losing? For example, now Mbappe, the coach decided not to call Mbappe because he decided on his own not to come in the last international break. He didn't have a problem with it. Now this time he's saying that he's not calling him. When he said that, obviously said that Mbappe wants to come, but he's saying that you're not coming. So where is the balance? Because clubs need to protect their players.
Yeah.
And the country needs their best players to come and represent them when there is a game.
No doubt, but you have to find a balance. And I feel like, I'll give you a clear-cut scenario. There are players that took a knock prior to the international game, and you have the club manager telling the national team manager, this player has a knock. Please don't play him 90 minutes. Put him in the second half. Do this one, do this one, do this one. The national team manager feels like, who are you to tell me how to use my player? And go ahead and play the person 90 minutes. And then it goes on from there on a 6 months out through another injury. In a scenario like that, how do you tell the club manager not to feel hard done by the national team coach when you clearly knew this player has a knock? Manage the player. We are not going to keep him from you, but at least manage. And you decide to be nonchalant with the players and the talents that are given to you. For example, I'll give you another clear-cut scenario, because what we are seeing now is a fight for balance.
Yes,
a fight for balance from players dodging playing too many games. Also from the regulators trying to stoke the calendar with more games to get more revenue and more eyeballs into the game. Now the national team sides also, who feel like without some of their certain star players, they will not be able to win games comfortably, because we've seen this. There are players that whenever France is playing, you have to be there. Why? Because they know that this player can add something, and if this player is not playing, they will tell you that we are a weaker team without them in the side. And with these we've seen them prior to now. So we have three broad spectrums: the player side, the regulators, and then we have the national team setup. Now I'll give you another categorical example. Just yesterday, Pep was granting an interview, and he was asked that what's up with Jack Grealish and fitness, that Jack Grealish is not fit, that he's being called up to the national team. And Pep was like, yes, Jack Grealish is not fit, that question should be asked to the manager of the UK national team, that Jack Grealish is not fit, Jack Grealish has not played for him, but he's being called up to the national team. You get that? So they are calling somebody up to the national team who's not fit, who's not been playing, and if he was another player now, he will go for that match. You understand me? Like we saw with Luke Shaw. So we have people that you can go play for a national team, pick up injury, be out from club football for 6 months, and then because it's Euros, you sneak your way back into the national team without even giving empathy towards the club side that's been picking up your tab. Okay, so there are too many conflicting points, but the players feel like they cannot control the fixture, so they decide to pick the games they show up for. And if they continue doing so, we are going to have national team coaches who are going to feel like this is a slight to their ego, and they are going to keep dropping some of these players to make way for other people to play.
Okay, let's talk about the recent one that is happening, Didier Deschamps and Mbappe. What do you make of this conflict between both of them? Because last time, the last international break, Mbappe came out in the media to say that he needs to start back with. He's fit. He can play, but he wants to stay with Real Madrid and probably get used to the environment, and did not come to France. I think, Deschamps actually granted him, whether he granted him by force or probably Mbappe actually forced him. But sometimes the way you give a request matters. If I come and tell you, I'm not coming to work today, I'm not asking you for permission. I'm telling you that I'm not coming to work today. It's two different things. Do you understand? I think probably the way he presented it to Deschamps, but now he is saying that he wants to come, but he's not going to come. So if you look at this conflict, what do you make of this conflict? Because it's the international break. You cannot decide when to come and when not to come.
In the context of what happened between Deschamps and Kylian Mbappe last time, is about last time he said he was not going to be available unless it's a big game. Now, the big games you're talking about is maybe against Spain, against Belgium, against Italy, against England. Then how many times do you play those guys in a year? How many times do you play them in 5 years? Except for top tournaments. So I feel like him coming in to say, but maybe they had the conversation, maybe they don't have, because we're going to be talking about hypotheticals right now. If they had a conversation, he shouldn't have come out to the media to say the way he did. could have said, "Oh, I'm not available right now. I have something I'm suffering from." They
lie all the time. I have
a lie. I have a knock. I'm just nursing it. So I'm managing it through my Real Madrid stay, and I'm new at Real Madrid. I won't want to continue to have the knock, suffer the knock, and still play for France with the same knock. So I'm carrying a knock right now. There are some lies you tell, and people understand. Like Saka now have a knock in
yes.
Automatic knock. So you get, these are things that happen. You tell a lie, but all of a sudden you're saying you want to play only the big games. The coach has the right to say, now I'm not going to ask you a question now. You want to play only the big games, and you're playing against Kosovo, and you're losing 1-0. You're playing against San Marino, and you're losing 1-0 because these people have not scored. They've not won a game since 2004, and all of a sudden they won. I think they won this year. As after 20 years, they won a game. These teams win games once in 20 years. And all of a sudden, once in 20 days, they score another goal and they are winning another game. Instead of once in 20 years, they are now winning another game in once in 20 days. Now, that 20 days from the last time they won their game is against France. And they score the early goal and they sit deep, lock up shop, and you're expecting somebody to come in and do a magic, and there's no Kylian Mbappe on the bench. There's no Kylian Mbappe anywhere. There's no high media presence in the field that could cause a fear among the defense. And they need you. Is that not a big game for the coach? Because at that time, you feel like if they lose on that game, it will be like France lose to ordinary Kosovo, France lose to ordinary San Marino, France lose to ordinary Lesotho.
And even if you look at it, France has been to tournaments without big names.
So it's still the same thing, and they perform. But if they go to this tournament and without you, it feels like you just mentioned it was like impromptu, because the last tournament they went to without big names, the Frank Ribery's and the Karim Benzema's and all of that, even the likes of Pogba, it was pre-announced. They had time to build for the absence of Pogba. Even if they don't have the time to get a plausible replacement, they had time to build for his absence. They had time to build for the Conte's absence. And look at what happened. Out of all the time they had to build for Conte's absence, they started to invite him back to the fold because they know that there was nobody that could replace him properly. So for Kylian Mbappe now, a short notice is not good enough. Because you didn't give the coach time to look for your replacement.
I don't think they're looking for a replacement, John. If you look at this...
no, I'm just saying for this contest now. So I feel like in this contest now, him going into national team without inviting Kylian Mbappe is just, I would say, egos. Egos are bruised, and somebody just needs to repair his own ego on his own end, win a game without Kylian Mbappe. So they will say, oh, he doesn't depend on Kylian Mbappe to get the results he gets.
What do you make of this particular incident? Because I think it's an ego thing if you look at it. Mbappe, I think it's the way Mbappe presented it to the, that's why I see, or the way he said it to the press, it looks like I'm telling you I'm not going to, like, for example, as I said before, you could tell me you are not going to be coming to a show today. You are not asking for a permission. You are telling me what you are going to do. It's two different things. Please, can I not come for the show today? Do you understand? So what do you make of these two incidents? Do you think that it's an ego thing and Deschamps is right to drop Mbappe for this particular international break?
When you remember the fact that Deschamps was one of the managers that brought him into this setup, there is no way he's going to put a phone call and tell him, Baba, look, I'm not coming, because he's his boy. You understand me? The difference may be the nuance and the context of the conversation. Now, I can come and prostrate for you and tell you, boss, I beg, I know they come tomorrow. See. But I go in the media and be like, I'm only interested in playing for big teams against France. It's different context and nuances, but I'm posturing as though I told my boy that I will not be coming. And the media will take that and run with that, because that's what they do and that's how they usually do. And
propagandas.
So, as always,
headline must sell.
We say yes, headline and paper must sell. And what sells the paper is controversy, Mbappe versus Didier Deschamps, whereby they had a candid gentleman conversation. An agreement was reached, but somebody went and skilled it to the media to make himself look good or to put somebody else down. So at the end of the day, I think it's a battle of emotions and a battle of egos, and then the nuance of the conversation and the context it was presented in was what sparked this. But at the end of the day, we are building towards a crescendo right now in international football, where the players will selectively take themselves out of key matches and key tournaments, or by taking themselves out of build up to the tournament, the coaches will now be the final arbiter and say, okay, you don't want to play for us building up to the World Cup, you are not coming to the World Cup.
It's going to be hard though.
We are going to see it happen.
It's going to be hard.
I have to agree with John now, because it's surprising you see a World Cup in this our era now. We'll see a World Cup without a Ronaldo and a Messi, without a Zlatan Ibrahimovic. It was tough to see a World Cup without a De Lima Ronaldo and the Brazilians that year, Rivaldos and all of that. It was tough to just live through that. This World Cup, there will be no Brazil Ronaldo, there will be no Brazil Ronaldo. There will be
retired after 2008.
Now look at the World Cup. I'm just saying in 2010, it was somehow. Then all of a sudden you're seeing a German side. There's no Toni Kroos, there's no Müller, there's no top players for Klose. Oh, okay, fine. Let's go back. You're going to Netherlands. There's no Van Dijk and all of that. So very soon you start seeing a World Cup without a Kylian Mbappe, a Jude Bellingham for England, a Kopama because they withdrew themselves, a Bukayo Saka because they withdrew themselves from the build-up play. Now the coach will have to, out of stubbornness, say, okay, fine. Since you guys did not help us qualify, let us give the starting bet to those who helped qualify. That's what I'm saying. At some point in this tournament, now this is where you say, okay, coaches or perhaps you know the players that will be playing. You know the players. You already have your list due to top form. But you have to start scouting for other players that could come in.
Yes. You
have your 23-man list. At some point, you need to introduce 7, 8. So when you are calling players to camp, you're calling 50 players to camp. You get, once they arrive at camp, you know your 23 players. You say, okay, fine, this is my 23 players, so I have to shortlist them because they play massively for their club. But they should be there so that it's just like saying, if Victor Osimhen is in camp, a Boniface is in camp, you get, and you have a Kazim Adeyemi, a Kazim Adeyemi of Rangers, you have a Kazim Oguleye of Rangers, you have a Xavier of Rangers in the same camp, you have a Kazim Bonu of Kano Pillars, you have a Usman.
Please don't say another Kazim because the Kazim
not playing. You have an Usman from Kano Pillars in the same camp. You know, they will have to learn from these players, and you say, okay, fine, go into this international football because these players have massive games to play. They are playing for big clubs around Europe. They have massive games to play. Help us train these players so they can just play the national. You're playing against a Lesotho. You're playing against a Madagascar. You're playing against a smaller team.
Why are players helping to train other players? That's job.
See, look at what I'm saying.
Mentality. You now, you're feeding off. You're feeding these people with the mentality that you can do better than us if you put your mind to it.
Nobody will do that for you. Do you want to displace them?
You're not displacing that.
But look at that.
Because the coach knows that once you help the coach out in training to help groom young players, the coach knows that this place is for you in the tournament. But it's just that you need rest at some point so these players can play. Not really all of them.
All these big countries, they have a whole number of talents.
Look at where I'm coming from now. I'm coming out from, there are a couple of coaches in Europe right now that in their sleep they know they are starting 11. Why? Because these are the 11 that have been bearing fruit for them, that have been slaving for them, and so some of them are comfortable. They are not doing as much scouting as they should be doing. They're not doing as much research and reaching out to young talent that should be cropping up. And then when you have players with big egos or congested calendars draw themselves out of the running, it puts pressure on you because you need to go and find replacements and find a way to win without them. So of course it's going to open up the conversation for more outliers to come into the team. People who are, for example, we saw that happen in England. Andre Gomez that was playing for Lille, that was never in the conversation of playing for England, came in due to Carsley coming in as the interim manager. We also saw a couple of players who Gareth Southgate let out of the English national side come back into the side. So as calendars get congested and a couple of these big players keep pulling themselves out of some of these games, out of some of these running, is creating an opportunity for some of those managers to give starts and try to other players who may not have been featuring for the national team. But then we are also going to see another thriller coming in, because we've seen for over the past 2 decades there are players that they are there, they qualify you into the tournament, but when it's time for the tournament you don't call them up. You understand that? We are now going to see people that, you know, they are there for you.
You will not give them every match.
You don't call them up. And then now we are going to see people that are not there in the build up to the tournament, and then when you get to the tournament the manager says, no, I'm not calling you because you weren't building with us. Let's give these guys a chance to come in and do the job.
The question is now, who is at fault? Is it the organizer, the players? The players don't want, that dodging the international football, or the club that probably tells the player you can't go, find a way not to go, or the national body, the general, the
FIFA.
the FIFA body that is actually organizing these tournaments. Tournaments are everywhere.
The players will not be pulling themselves out of games if the regulators went to the PFA, went to the association to throw and sell this idea to these players before implementation. Because once you are not consulted and a policy is implemented, it shows, even if you get paid to play in that match, it shows you are not valued. It shows you are just another commodity that they can expand. For crying out loud, in international friendlies wasn't a big thing till UEFA woke up one day and decided to rebrand it and put a plastic cup there for people to carry and say, hey, Nations League. What's Nations League? It's just friendlies. But now they put it expanded games, expanded countries that can come in, and expanded the calendar. That's not alone. You look at the Champions League, expanded games, expanded table, expanded teams, congested calendar. That's not it. You look at the Club World Cup too, expanded teams, expanded games, expanded calendar, and all of these competitions is still expanded and hurting the top 200 talent in Europe who should be protected and given rest. They are the ones who are playing 90 matches in a season and can't find 2 weeks to rest from a full season. It's terrible if you ask me.
No, I understand what you're saying, but they still get paid. If you go on social media, you see people are saying, especially in Nigeria, they're saying, if they pay me with this kind of money they are paying this player, I'll play 90 minutes every day. But it's not always like that, because you have to factor in a whole lot of things. Yes. Players traveling, the rest,
jet lag,
trainings upon training, so
injuries.
But if you look at this whole thing, who will you fault?
See, I wouldn't fault everybody, because I would fault the what's it called, the league organizers and all of the bodies. But for the guy that said he will play every day for even if they pay him, we're forgetting the fact that it's Nigerian. On the streets of the world, you see people play football every day for 2 hours. But inside the 2 hours is like playing set. What we call it set. It's Guadangwa football. You play 15 minutes, you're off the pitch for rest. Another team plays for like 15 minutes, then you come back. You don't play straight up 2 hours. But still, if you say this, you're forgetting that if these players have jet lag to travel, and you're just playing for fun of yourself. But if you're playing to impress other people, because there are like 10,000, 70,000, 50,000 people watching in the stadium. Now, I'm not talking about the people watching from home, the millions of people watching from their house, from their zone, that could just go on social media, go on Twitter and type nonsense and criticize you, go on Facebook, go on any other social media platform to type as much as they can, just to criticize you. Type an epistle of 10,000 words, and media must sell, and one newspaper headline catches wind of that write-up and puts it on the tablet, and the player is done. So you're talking about this because you don't have anybody. You only have just your 10, 15 friends that are on the sideline that are waiting for you to come out so they can play their own set. You just have only all of those 15, 20 people on the sidelines watching you, and none of them are actually giving you a stand-up ovation. But they will still have to, if those 10 or 20 people will still have to criticize you if your game is not up to par. Now compare that 20 people to 20 million people that are watching from the houses and from the stadium. Then you see that you can't handle it. They get paid. Yes, I go online and I see people say they miss that kind of chance for field, I go scram. And you go to the field actually, and next thing that comes out of your head is, hi, I'll bring him Chaiba. It's not what I wanted to play. You know that it's not what you wanted to play in your head. How are you sure that that's not what you wanted to play? You go on, it's easy to criticize, but until we are on the spot, you can go on to criticize the world for not doing the right things until you're given the power to do the right thing. Then you see that you're part of what the problem is. Because when you get on the field, you're dumb. You don't actually see anything. People say you see the post is as big as it is. I was playing a penalty the other day and I looked at the post. I felt like it was too small for me to even score. So it's just the way it is. There's pressure on you as a player. There's pressure on you because you're trying to please millions of people, not just yourself, not just your family members that are watching from home, but other millions of people that also have their eyes on you as a star man. You're trying to please them as well. That's why you see that these players came under media scrutiny after the last competition where they lost the penalty. Yes. The Sakas and the rest of them.
Yes.
They were under, but after they scored the last one, you see that the world started praising them, started singing them praises. So it's a lot when you're under media scrutiny and than when you're playing just for the fun of yourself.
Yeah, to add to that conversation, I think the people most hard done by this conjunction of fixtures are the players at big clubs who go the distance in the Champions League, who go the distance in the Premier League, in the Club World Cup, in all of these competitions, and then have barely just 5 or 6 days to rest before they are back training again, back in preseason. You have the bulk of other players in this competition As of May, they've hung boots. They don't know what when they talk. They are watching you on TV. They are resting. They are the ones that can come back 2 months to the season, train their life and become better performers than you. Whereby you are burnt out. And of course, when the media person is writing, they will not put other things into perspective. Nobody puts into perspective that, like Cristiano Ronaldo, you lost a baby or something, and that thing can affect you mentally. Nobody puts in perspective that you've not had enough sleep, or that you have an issue at home because you and your wife are quarreling because you are barely home any other day. Nobody puts these things in perspective, but everybody expects you to be professional and show on a brave face, and as we continue paying, not paying cognizance to these salient factors, we see them manifest every day on the pitch. So it needs to be managed. Otherwise, players will selectively keep removing themselves, and the value of this competition will keep watering down as the day goes by.
Okay, if you look at this whole thing that is happening in the international break, once the international break, players somehow they get knocked the game before the international break. If you look at what happened with Arsenal, I'm not saying that he's not injured, but it's funny that most players pick up knocks, and some players decide not to go, like Odegaard decided not to go to international with nowhere, which is understandable. He just came back for injury, but he played the 90 minutes for Arsenal. So, and if you notice, Norway actually needs him because they are not actually done well when it comes to international football, but he decided not to go. There is this case with Deschamps and Mbappe. Him saying that he's not going to go. The last time he wanted to go, this time Deschamps is saying no. So a whole lot of things. Players are withdrawing from this international breaks, withdrawing from this international game, which is not good for international football. We should be enjoying international football. All the stars should come and play for their country. But unfortunately, because of the amount of games played in one season, players are now choosing games they play and games they are not going to play. But let's see how this turns out. Even Tuchel has started complaining about a number of players withdrawing in one international break is too much for him. But he is going to come in January to see if he's going to fix up things and if England is going to do well in the major tournament. But let's see, generally international break is happening this week. Next week, let's sit down and enjoy these games.